A review into the Optus Triple Zero outage has found gaps in process, accountability and escalation protocols. During the almost 14-hour outage, more than 600 Triple Zero calls were attempted and 75% failed. It's been linked to 2 deaths. Consumer Affairs reporter Michael Atkin joins me now. Hi there, Michael. So what has this review found about the mistakes that Optus made during and after the outage?
Yes, I've just been poring off this newly released report to find out what it says, and it talks about there being crucial mistakes made by Optus and its contractor Nokia, 10 in total, during this routine firewall upgrade, and that meant that things like people weren't attending meetings, they were selecting the wrong methods, and they weren't monitoring call volumes properly and redirecting calls. And so it meant that for this huge time period, Triple Zero calls were failing, and Optus failed to notice that that was the case for 13 hours. And it goes to the warnings that the public gave Optus. So we have known for some time that 5 people called the Optus call centre and said Triple Zero calls aren't working. And Dr. Schott, who did this review, talks about having reviewed what happened after those calls and says it made for sobering listening going over those calls because all those people correctly diagnosed what was happening and yet correct action wasn't taken. And then when Optus went to go on and do welfare checks on the failed Triple Zero calls to see how people were, that was not escalated properly up the chain of command inside the company. And of course, there's been a lot of political fallout and lost skin for Optus over that.
So what does it say needs to change inside Optus?
There's 21 recommendations for system change, and a lot of it is to do with network processes, to do with things like how their engineers should operate, but also to do with how it handles risk and internal audits inside the company. And, it's called for an overhaul in the way they manage a crisis, because one of the things it talks about is this massive crisis management document that Optus had. And the review says, well, in a crisis, nobody is going to read that massive document and it needs to be snappy. But I thought one of the recommendations is worth pointing out to you because it talks about broader problems with the Triple Zero system. In particular, it says that customers need to be told that in a network outage, their devices may take 40 to 60 seconds to connect to Triple Zero, and that they should be encouraged to test their devices to ensure that they work properly for a Triple Zero call. Now, of course, for that to happen now would be a problem because it would mean the Triple Zero operator Telstra, their call centre workers, would get a lot of those calls. And so it recommends setting up something else where people can actually call and test their phone and make sure that it's connecting to Triple Zero properly.
And Michael, what does this say about sort of broader problems within the Triple Zero system?
Well, that process that I've just talked about there, where it might take 40 to 60 seconds for a person's call to connect, of course, when you're in an emergency, that would seem like an absolute eternity. And the problem would be if people hang up earlier. And this is a process known as camping on, and it means that, say, the Optus network is down. When you call Triple Zero, your phone on the Optus network is still meant to work. It's meant to go to the Telstra network or the Vodafone network so that you can still get through to Triple Zero. And if this camp-on mechanism, the report says it wasn't always working as it should have during the outage, and that is a real problem. It goes to what we've been reporting on for months now, concerns about the integrity of the Triple Zero emergency call system and whether there needs to be a significant overhaul here.